All right. Good morning, everyone. I hope you guys have your coffee. We are live here. This is the first in a while. Cheers, David, man. A
Yeah,
Flix
man.
Talk
Cheers, brother.
talking TV collaboration. It's been a minute. Life's got pretty busy. We used to do this all the time back when the pandemic
We're
allowed
still in
us
a
to do.
pandemic. We're still in a pandemic. Isn't that crazy?
I know, man. We met in the pandemic and that's been almost 2 years now, which is nuts.
Yeah.
Probably over 2 years. I mean, I miss the days of the pandemic when we would just like throw watch parties from like 4 p.m. to like 7 p.m. There'd be like 10 of us who
Yeah,
what else are we gonna do? We're gonna go live on our YouTube channels and watch a movie with our audiences. Good times.
exactly. A lot of live streams, a lot of watch parties, man. I miss them. That's a huge integration now too. I don't know if you've seen like on Twitch with because they're partners with like Amazon. Not to go off on a tangent, but they actually integrate watch parties. So that actually blew up and became a thing. That's awesome. And we were at the peak of we were at the start of that.
Yeah, we really were. We were doing it the old school way, man. Just get
Right.
as many as you can on the free StreamYard. I think it was you can have up to 10 people. So the last person in the
Oh
group
God.
chat to answer had to watch instead of be a part of it. Actually, I
Yeah.
remember Luke here in the chat sometimes because of the time difference. He would kind of pop in after someone
I
got tired and left.
I think he was part of one of my live streams that was like 8 people at once or 10 people at once. We were all talking. It was a disaster. I will say that.
I remember we did a live stream on your channel once. I think it
Uh-huh.
was a Mission Impossible movie.
I think that
Five
was it.
hours.
Oh God. Yeah, it was something like that.
We were sitting there for 5 hours, dude. That
That's
was
crazy.
pandemic.
That was
We
pandemic life. Yeah.
We won't be sitting here quite as long this morning, but we do have a good show for you guys planned nonetheless. So today we're talking about Peacemaker. I mean,
Hmm.
this show is, well, I'll save my thoughts. No spoilers. But before we do that, guys, this is obviously a cross stream. So please be sure to subscribe, hit the like button, turn the bell on for notifications wherever you are right now. And then if you
Yeah.
can do us a favor, in both of the descriptions on this video, the other person's channel is listed. So if you could hop over there and do the same for the videos, that would be greatly appreciated. Follow us, of course, on all of our social medias. Both our
Down
channel
below.
and David's got hacked. So go and go and subscribe to the new Instagrams at It's
Yeah.
Flix Talk, at Official Talking TV Podcast. And with that being said, I mean, David, do you want to well, first let's welcome in the
Sure.
chat, then I'll let you take it and we can start off chatting about episode 1.
Yeah.
This must be one of your guys.
Yeah, Tony Movie Chappie. He's an awesome guy that's been around the channel for quite a while, man. Also, I mean, we watched one of his favorite movies, which was Chappie. You know,
Fuck
the
mother.
Neil Blubcap fan. So welcome, my friend. Welcome, Flix Talkers. Once again, yeah, we are multi-streaming guys, which is awesome. We've done this a couple of times with Talking TV. Fantastic channel. So once again, if you guys are tuning in on my channel, make sure you guys go check them out. Subscribe now. They have an awesome channel. Just hit over 400, right? 400
Yeah,
subs.
400. Yep. Slowly
Let's get them
grinding.
to let's get them to 500, guys. Top of the new year, 2022, and it's going to be a fun year. It is going to be a fun year, even though unfortunately, a lot of movies are getting pushed back because there's a lot of movies coming out, next couple of months that I wanted to see, but they got pushed back to summer or even further. But this is one of the greater. I think great ways to kick off the new year is Peacemaker because I'll reserve my judgment for after. But I was actually really excited to see this, especially since coming off of the Suicide Squad last year.
Dude, we ended the year sweeping the leg, right? Because Cobra Kai technically is a 2021 release, both of the seasons, which is
That was another
actually
one.
absolutely absurd. And now we're
I
starting the
wish I
year
could
off.
have talked that with you. I wish I could have talked that with you because I actually got to see that a little early, and I knew you guys were going to be talking about that, and I was like, "Oh shit, dude!" Because I think last year we actually did a live stream talk for season 3, and it was such a fun time talking. I saw your thoughts on that, but I'm glad you had a good time with that.
Such a blast, man. I mean, that series is it could have went really bad, but it didn't. What's going on? Aiden, it's good to
What's up,
see you. And
Aiden?
yeah, Luke was up until 8 a.m. Isn't that something, man? So
What's up, JT?
there you go. What up, JT? So yeah, guys, this is going to be a fun one this morning, and thank you all again for being here so much. So, David,
Yeah,
Peacemaker,
yes,
episode
sir.
1. What'd you think?
Episode 1, A Whole New World. So we get our introduction, which is cool because I thought they actually did, even though this is the first episode, we're still getting a recap from the Suicide Squad. We're talking spoilers here, by the way, right? Just let the chat know that we are talking spoilers.
Full on
Everything?
spoilers, no hold bar. So you've been
Okay.
warned.
See, you have been warned, guys. 3, 2, 1, talking spoilers. So I thought it was cool that we did get kind of a recap from the Suicide Squad, just showing the key points, of Idris Elba's character. Bloodshot, right? Bloodshot, I believe it is.
Yes, I believe so. I'll look it
Yeah.
up as you continue.
I think it was Bloodshot, where he does shoot Peacemaker in the neck, which lands him in the hospital. So,
Bloodsport. I'm sorry.
Bloodsport.
Yeah, sport. Yep.
Okay, sorry about that. Which does land him in the hospital, and then we spent some time with Peacemaker in the hospital. He gets out and pretty much just tries to flee, but he forgets that he has that chip implanted in the back of his head, which is GPS and whatnot. And another thing, which is also a cool element too, he can't go anywhere. They can explode his head at any time. So I think the stakes are high for this, and then he just gets introduced to a whole new rogue crew of mercenary misfits, I guess, and that kind of leads to the next objective at hand. I mean, I like the story, even though it was a little cookie cutter from the actual movie The Suicide Squad. It's like, okay, well, you can keep going to prison and we can keep pulling you out and using you to your to our gain. So that was the only thing that was it's a recycled plan, but it does work. Because I mean, how many revenge movies have this same plot, right?
A lot.
A lot
I
do.
mean,
So
look at Marvel. I mean, it's I just wrote a review actually for this for the guy at the movies website,
Mhm.
and I felt as I was writing my reviews for each individual episode of Peacemaker that audiences needed to understand where I was coming from. So I messaged him. I said, "Hey Joe, can I do like an overview?
Mhm.
Because I think I'm going to come off as a grumpy, angry person about the superhero genre as a whole. And that's not the case. I love comic books. I love comic book movies.
Yeah.
I'm just very picky and I want them to be really good because I like them so much. So I don't necessarily blindly just follow everything that comes out.
Yeah.
He's like, yeah, sure. Do whatever you need to do to bring clarity to the review. So I wrote this overview and I was like, look, it's not that I don't like these movies. The movies I love are some of my favorite movies of all time in this genre, but there's a lot of stinkers in my opinion. And I think a lot of people just turn a blind eye because, oh, it's the next Marvel thing and it's going to be super pop culture, zeitgeisty moment. So it's
Mhm.
okay if it's like, basically drag and drop, same storyline, but different set of tights and spandex,
Right. Yeah.
So I think that is understandable. Your comments about they all have the bomb in their head. Amanda Waller's threatening them all with death, and if you don't do what we're supposed to do, we're gonna blow you up. And by the way, do the bombs actually work? I doubt they work. I feel like that's the joke of it all.
That could have been a bluff. Yeah, imagine if that's the whole thing. It's like they get to like a certain point where they're on the run, and then it's like, all right, hit the button, and then it's like there is no button. Like what?
Yeah. I mean, because even in Arrow, I don't think we ever saw anyone actually killed by the bomb in the head. That could just
Mm.
be the joke of the Suicide Squad, which I think would be so amazing. But that's not to dilute my point too much. I think it's one of those things where yes, it is like a story that we've seen before because now we're doing the same thing again as the first Suicide Squad movie, then the second Suicide Squad movie titled The Suicide Squad.
Yeah.
It's the bomb in the head. It's the do what we say, you're gonna die. But I feel like it's the characterization of Peacemaker that kind of makes this show different, even though the storyline at its heart is a bit recycled because we've had the Arrowverse where we know Suicide Squad members from that Arrowverse, and then we obviously have the DCEU. But what's your take on that? Like, is it forgivable given how they're playing John Cena's character?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I love the whole irony of things. I mean, first of all, Peacemaker, I kind of compared him in a review that I did for this series so far to almost like a Punisher vigilante character, but not really because he does really think that he's doing the right thing, but then he ends it off by saying, "I'm willing to kill men, women, and children." It's like, well, a superhero cape would not say something like that because you understand that people that are caught in the melee of things, collateral damage is something that you don't really want. So he kind of has that duality of, doing the right thing, but at whatever cost. And when we're thinking about cookie cutter PG-13 Marvel movies, this Peacemaker is definitely leaning more towards the rated R. Just finish the objective at hand, which I absolutely loved and gravitated towards because it adds more realism to someone that's kind of almost have like a mental framing like like a screw loose, where he really thinks he's doing the right or the right thing. But I think as we dive deeper into these episodes, especially some of the struggles that he has with his dad, it totally makes sense. It totally makes sense to why he acts the way he does.
Yeah, he definitely um has a unique family situation.
Oh
That's
God,
for
yeah.
sure. I love how they have like this like Alex Jones type character on the screen in the background,
I
like
thought
when
that
they
was
walk into
hilarious.
the house. That was hilarious. I was like, I know what you're trying to say, and it was just unreal. And
Yeah, that was fun.
that was pretty cool. But I
Hmm.
gotta say, I think that like it's yes, I agree with what you're saying, and I think like it also is forgivable. I think to answer the question I posed, because of how different this character is. I mean, he does have some Deadpoolisms, and I feel like Deadpool's success might have been a subtle inspiration to this type of more raunchy approach to the superhero story, the anti-hero, right? Who
Right.
for the most part kills people who I guess in a superhero world should be killed, but like his method to saving the day is still murder, and like
Hmm.
gruesome murder at that. So
Yeah.
it's questionable at best. Like sure, he's killing for peace, but I mean that in and of itself is such an amazing hilarious statement.
Well, because going back, to what you just said, if you think about it, like Spider-Man. I mean, Spider-Man is not there to kill. He's usually there to, trap his foe and take him take him into custody, right? I mean, not immediately shoot to kill like as a peacemaker would. So it definitely changes the norm. It puts the coin on its head or whatever, it offers something I think different and fresh that the Wolf. I'm sorry, Logan and Deadpool really had an audience for. Like I think people really gravitated towards that, and they wanted to see more. Even Joker with that came out a few years back. People really were like, okay, I think there's a market for watchers, that people that want to see more of this stuff. And I think Peacemaker definitely fits in there with the comedy, with the horror, with the realism, gore realism. Definitely felt all the trauma stuff from James Gunn along the way in this. So I liked it. I had a really good time, especially with these first 3 episodes.
Yeah, for sure, man. The realism and seeing something different. You know, you bring up some movies that I think are great examples. Logan, Joker. As much as I necessarily wasn't the biggest fan of Joker, I think there is an audience out there that loves superheroes like myself, but is kind of tired of the Marvel formula. And on
Yeah.
top of that, who also feels like, where are we going now that the Thanos saga's over? You know, like we haven't really picked up the pace yet in a way that like has been able to suck me back in. Sure, we've had some cool moments in like the Disney Plus shows. Like I really liked Loki, but where really are we going? And are we just going to be doing the same thing? Shang-Chi kind of seemed like an origin story similar to one we've seen before. And Eternals kind of had movie beats, in my opinion, similar to like those early Avengers films where we're slowly ramping up a new team, we're establishing each member's role, but we've kind of seen it before. Again, it's that copy and paste, drag and drop, you know,
Yeah.
old story, new set of spandex and tights, right? I mean, that's
Yeah.
just so it is cool that like we have this sort of alternative universe of superhero stories that are coming about and starting to like grow. And like I think that's like Amazon with The Boys and Invincible.
Mm-hmm.
Like that, those two shows in specific reminded me, yeah, you do like comics and you do like superhero movies, but it's just formulaic, and that's like you started reading these stories because like for me like the TV nerd, right? There's a reason I'm the TV nerd. I've always felt that TV was the medium that I liked more than film because if I like a character, I want to spend a lot of time with that character. You know, I don't just want to watch him for
Mm-hmm.
2 hours, then have him just disappear and like for another 3 years, if there even is a sequel, or just have them only live in that one standalone film. Like,
Right.
sure, that's great, and I've grown to love movies. Doing this show has opened my eyes to a lot, but I want to like sink my teeth into a character. So I first got into comics because there's like 200 runs sometimes in these issues, and then
Mm-hmm.
even if there's only like a shorter run of like Aquaman, which is still like 50 issues, there's like 30 other runs that go on for like hundreds and hundreds of pages where you can just continue to binge it, you know? So
Mm-hmm.
it's like cool in the sense that we have this Marvel Cinematic Universe, but like the difference is like you can read one Aquaman story from one. Aquaman's my favorite superhero, that's why he's coming to mind. You can read one Aquaman story from one writer and another from another, and it's completely different. Like Aquaman Rebirth is so different than New 52. It's a completely different take on the same character, the same world. Whereas Marvel just feels repetitive. So when a show like Peacemaker comes along, it's very refreshing. And before we get too far away, and I want to dive into some specifics on the first episode, I was wrong. The coffee hadn't fully hit yet. So,
Savant got
you
his
know,
head blown up.
the bombs work. And it's not that I didn't like Joker, Eric. It took a while to grow on me. At first, it was a little off putting. And
You're not the only one, too. I assume that everyone loved Joker. Like last night, my brother that came over, we were kind of going through my movie collection, and I asked him, I said, "You guys seen Joker?" And my brother said, he goes, "You know what? I spent like a half an hour with it. I didn't get into it." And I go, I think you're not really going to get into it, but this is just my, you know, reasoning why I didn't think he specifically didn't like it is because I think if you're not used to a certain formulaic, once again, then you're gonna kind of push to the side. I took it as something completely different, and I think when you don't have any expectations whatsoever, and I was mainly going for Joaquin Phoenix. I love him, and I wanted to see what his performance could bring to this character. And if it had tie-ins with Batman, cool. If, you know, a Gotham or whatever, cool. That's fine. But I was more there for him. And once I saw it was more about a mental health issue deal that we were talking about, that's when I kind of was like, okay, this is a little more relatable to, you know, real world Earth that we live on and humans that we walk amongst. So that's kind of why I took it a different approach with it once I came out of the theater.
yeah, it's definitely one of those films that I needed to have some room to grow and breathe with. Like, I've been having a lot of fun doing these little short videos where it's like my initial reaction, and those are cool because I can
Oh
like
yeah,
keep,
I seen
you
those.
know, I can keep those, and I have that moment now, like, oh shit, this is how like I looked when I felt like immediately after finishing it. But even on our long form reviews, like I'll do the short for the Book of Boba in the morning, then we'll go and we'll do the actual episode later. People will comment and they'll be like, "You completely changed your views, bro." It's like, yeah, well, that was like right after I had finished watching the episode, like 4 seconds after I put the phone to my face. That's what I initially thought. Like, it's okay to change and grow. Like, good art makes you
Oh yeah.
think. So, speaking of thinking, JT's No BS Reviews, that's a great name, asks, do you guys think that the viewers are drawn to a character that uses violence to obtain justice in a world where justice systems around the world are falling or failing to protect civilians from the bad guys? I think that's a great way to sort of dive into like what I was going to go to about the character himself and really start
Yeah.
talking about Cena's Peacemaker. So I don't know. You want to start off by answering that one?
Sure. I think we live in a new generation where I mean, I know for a fact we live in a new generation. I was just reading an article yesterday of I don't know if you follow Kristen Bell, from Frozen. I mean, she did the voiceover for you know Kristen Bell. She's married to Dax Shepard. You've definitely
Okay,
seen her if you Google
I'll look her
Kristen
up.
Bell. Does a lot of comedy. She has a new Netflix special or series coming out at the end of the month. But anyways, she's under a lot of scrutiny because she took pictures with the police department, Lancaster Police Department out here in California. And the people were saying because I guess last year or a couple months later when they were having the BLM protest, she was posting a lot about Black Lives Matter. So in their eyes, they were saying that if you're posting about Black Lives Matter, excuse me, you cannot post pictures with the police department. It's almost like they're the enemies of us right now. So a lot of people are you know whatever way you feel about the police department, they're equating that to entertainment, I believe. And if they see that a character taking justice into their own hands, they can gravitate towards that more because they're seeing something parallel in the real life, in the real world that we're living in. So I think it's becoming more and more prevalent now. I mean, that's why you're seeing a lot of movies kind of like this. I mean, what is it, Queen and Slim, you know, where he has an altercation with the police. You know, there's a lot of movies that have been coming out in the last like 5-10 years that deal with I'm not gonna say anti-police, but situations where you know people are cops are not the best looking guys in the film, right? Or series or whatever have you.
Yeah, like
So
Spiral.
exactly. So I think I think that kind of floods in a little bit. But do I think people are gravitate towards characters that use violence to obtain justice? It depends on the viewer. I think the younger viewers with video games, I guess I can call a parallel. Video games that I've seen recently are somewhat violent. I mean, you have a lot of shooters that are big. You know, what is it like Fortnite or whatever the hottest game is? A lot of these first-person shooters, right? People want to see this kill, 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 kill. So, I mean, why not see that in a medium that you're, like a series form? It's just something that kind of they know. So I guess it just depends on the viewer, but I would say, yeah, it's becoming more and more. It's a shock value thing too. It's just like, oh my god, like that type of deal.
Yeah, I think that's actually really interesting points you bring up there. I think there is the political undertones where we've been sort of depending on the side you're on, you're either trained to think one thing or the other, and that certainly factors into these type of characters who sort of
Mhm.
go above the law, because I think a lot of people are frustrated with the law right now. Whatever side you lean on, it seems like both sides want something to change. And we don't need to dive too much further into the politics, but I do think that obviously if you live in this world, it's hard to escape
I mean, I
politics
wouldn't
at
even
this
call
point
it
in time.
a political thing because I'm not a political guy whatsoever. But I think if you see certain things, especially with social media going around, I mean, you can't help but. I mean, I grew up in a time of watching Rodney King get his ass beat live on camera, right? And we all looked at that as holy shit. If the cameras weren't there, this could have been a whole different situation, right? Now that we have cameras everywhere, I think people are they're just full of. I mean, you see all the protests, you see all, a lot of, buildings being burned and stuff like that. People have anger in their heart. People are very, very angry. How they direct that anger, I mean, that's totally up to them. I'm not here to tell you guys what to do. I'm just saying that I can understand that people need a way to channel that, and I think that their life is full of that. So is it going to spill over into what they watch, and can they relate to these certain characters? Absolutely. I mean, it just goes with every other character, not just violence, but once again, like mental health with Joker, it's like, oh, I can relate to that, that's why I gravitate towards that. Or a comedy that's subjective, it's like it may not be for this type of person, but it's hitting me this certain way, that's why I like it. So I think it just depends on the viewer, but I think these are becoming more popular, like you said, with The Boys, or even like a Umbrella Academy, where it's a little out of the norm, different characters, but it's still this shock factor of, yeah, they're the ones kind of taking justice into their own hands, right?
100%. Luke even brings up Squid Game was very violent, and it is the most viewed Netflix series of all time. And it's so
Absolutely.
that the reason I highlight that comment, that's a whole nother country, right? Like we know America's feelings and sentiments, but even in Korea, like that show was created, South Korea, and super violent. I feel like
Mhm.
there's some frustrations. Clearly, that show has undertones about capitalism, and there's
Yeah.
like different social status things. And I think, you bring up the point about it's great that we have these cameras on our phones because we can like record bad things that happen and the more information spreads around. But also, I think it's spread a lot of what was happening, which is violent, bad stuff. So
Mhm.
we just constantly see, like, I know every time I go on Facebook, it's like, and I don't use Facebook that often, but all I get are like videos that just want to amp up anger in some way, shape, or form because we all have cell phones now, so we can record that type of stuff.
It's
And
like the nightly cable news, right? If it bleeds, it leads. That's why I don't watch news too much. Excuse me. I just watch it, every couple of days to stay informed what's going on in the world. But for the most time, I mean, the evening news is just centered focus on the latest shooting, the latest theft, the latest. It paints the world in the worst light, or your town in the worst light. It makes you scared to go out, right? Because once again, it's like, oh, I'm over here, trapped indoors, luckily that didn't happen to me, right? But it keeps you kind of like on this rush, this endorphin rush, and I think that's why they do it. That's why they push it in your face. So once again, with entertainment, I mean, it keeps us on our toes. Why do you think the crime genre is so big with Netflix? I mean, it's like one of their most watched genres like ever.
dude, I mean, I'm in journalism class, minoring in journalism right now in school, and if it leads, it bleeds, man. That's if it bleeds, it leads. Yeah, that's the thing. And my one
It sucks that
professor,
it's like that, but yeah.
you get like the one puff piece that takes up 2 to 3 minutes to end the broadcast to make you feel like things are okay. Like there's like a video of like a dog that a fourth grader tied too many balloons to in the park, and the father caught it before it fully blew away in the
Yeah,
air,
yeah.
like
It's
in
like,
a
here,
cute moment.
adopt this animal right here. No, no, no,
Yeah, like we saved Scruffy, like a good feel good moment to end it, but it's like, nah, you just sat there for
Exactly.
an hour and listened to all this horrible shit. And I do think a lot of that
Absolutely.
seeps into our art and our creating. I think
Yeah.
that James Gunn is specifically a creator who has brought a real world realism into a lot of his works. Even with Guardians of the Galaxy, their character relations and dynamics felt different than most other Marvel films to me. It felt more human, even though that's hilarious to say because that is literally the universe of Marvel. We're out there in the stars and the galaxy with the Guardians of the Galaxy, obviously. But it just like the way that James Gunn made those characters feel so down to earth, even though they couldn't be any farther away from it, was brilliant. and then in this series, now that we have more of like a street level type of character, because Peacemaker's different, he doesn't really have any superpowers. He just kind of gets lucky and can really like fuck people up when he has to, and that's
That's another
cool.
thing I was going to ask you too. Since we're on that, I was wondering, does he have superpowers? I mean, we see that he's leaping from building to building without taking that much, right, damage as like you and I would probably break our leg on the first jump or whatever, right?
True.
He gets stabbed without jumping too far ahead. He's getting stabbed, but it looks like he's really deflecting it. But it's like, well, he's a big guy. Maybe he's not feeling it as much as a smaller guy. I don't think he has super strength because I don't know if he's really displayed that yet, unless I missed the scene where he did.
So I think he's lucky. I think he is. I think luck might be like a factor here, like
Right.
actually a superpower, but
Mhm.
like I think he just gets lucky. Like I think his superpower is the writers. To be honest with you, because I don't see him doing anything different. He kind of messes up a lot, but somehow gets the job done. He's kind
Yeah,
of he's kind of like a jinx, but it works in his favor. Like he like will
that's
trip
funny.
and the gun will go off and he'll accidentally pull the trigger while he trips and end up shooting the villain and saving the day, but like he didn't intend to do that. It just kind of happened, like that stupid
Right.
trope.
Hmm.
But where I was going with that was, I think what James Gunn does is he is an observer of the world we live in, and
Hmm.
he brings the sort of like frustrations into this story, and this is the perfect character to do it, because we're talking about the first episode still, and that scene
Yeah.
where he's fighting the butterfly, the one that he hooks up with, when they're
Yeah.
slashing with the knife and when they're fighting, I was sitting like like it felt like it was so real. Like the
Oh yeah.
combat felt so, it was almost like too much for me for a second there. I was like, "Yo, stop.
That was
Stop."
a very intense scene, yeah,
Yeah.
especially when she was striking him just straight on, like, with the knife really deep, and I was like, "Oh god." And then, she had the super strength, she was throwing through walls and through tables, and that was a really cool matchup. I didn't expect that at all. Once again, talking about James Gunn, I mean, it showed him having sex, it showed the raunchy talk and stuff like that, which I don't mind seeing just for the simple fact of like, hey, he had talked about he wanted to hook up with I forget her name, Harcourt, the first name,
Mhm.
but Harcourt, he wanted to hook up with her and she was definitely not about it. So he just went to the closest girl that gave him the eye, right? So I thought that was cool because he said he had been locked up for 4 years, and he needed to release some stress. You know what I mean? So I thought that was really funny to just kind of add all of that in there. But that was a great, great fight. Great ending as well, too. With the little splash of gore that we got to see once he put on those helmets, which I'm so glad that we're going to get multiple helmets. I don't know anything about this character because I didn't never followed a comic or anything. So the use of multiple helmets, I initially judged this, and I talked about this in my review, that I initially judged this character because I thought he looked too old school, too goofy. Like this looked like a character straight out of the 1950s for me, as far as that helmet goes. Like it looked like the old school Captain America helmet. You remember
Yeah.
that?
Yeah.
Kind of
It
like that?
looks super old. It looks like kids were making it out of tinfoil. Back
Yeah.
when they used to play stickball.
Yeah, but once they added that element of, his dad played by Robert Patrick, who we should talk about. That guy's awesome. But he shows, the whole layer, I guess, the hidden layer in his house of multiple helmets. I kind of like that idea, but to me, it doesn't really. I mean, you're constantly running back to your car or wherever you stash these helmets in preparation for the objective at hand or whatever incident you're going to get into. But life isn't like that. Life is unpredictable. So why have multiple? Wouldn't you have like an Iron Man capable? Try to. I mean, I know he can't just develop this because he doesn't have Tony Stark, the brain of Tony Stark, but develop one helmet that can do multiple things. Because once again, you're put in awkward situations sometimes.
I think that's hilarious. I think that's part of the characterization. I
Yeah.
really love the way this character is written. You're right. To be honest with you, I'm not even going to lie. DC is my favorite comic company, but
Mhm.
I had never heard of Peacemaker until the Suicide Squad came around. This is a part of the DC comics that I didn't really mess with. I mean, to be completely honest with you, if there wasn't talking with fish involved, I wasn't really reading a lot of DC outside of that.
And he
But
and he, he pokes fun at Aquaman too in this.
Yeah, I know. It's pretty funny actually.
That was a really good scene.
As much as I hate that Aquaman gets ragged on, because side tangent, okay? If you guys actually read an Aquaman comic, he's literally just as strong as Superman. And he has a bonus power that Superman doesn't have.
So, do you have those same feelings about Aquaman reading the comic as you do with the movies? Do you enjoy the movies that have come out so far? Or well, there's only one movie, right, so far?
There's one solo, and
And then
he's been in obviously all
there's
the
one
ensembles.
coming out soon.
There's one coming out. Yep.
Yeah.
I love Jason Momoa as Aquaman. I think he's badass, dude. He's got. I mean, hey, you're watching Game of Thrones now. He has like that Dothraki presence in everything he does. I'm watching this show on Apple TV Plus right now that stars him. I'm 2 episodes in. It's called C, and it's another one
Oh,
of
is that the
those.
one with him and Dave Bautista?
Batista's a second season edition.
Okay.
And I haven't gotten there yet, but apparently he's really good in it. So that's why I was trying to catch up and see what was going to happen. I'm trying to make it for my end of the year consideration, but he fits the fantasy sci-fi genre really well, dude. He's got the body, he's got like the look where he just looks like a Greek god, honestly. Like you're just like, fuck, dude, this guy's got the crazy locks. He's good in action sequences for sure. Yeah. And so, I think this is hey man, it's been a good show so far. We're happy you're here. But the movie world in the chat.
It is perfect to have these big guys or wrestlers turned actors in these roles like this, because in the beginning I think all of us thought, okay, how is The Rock going to maintain being an actor, right? He's just so big and he's gotten bigger, which limits the roles that he can be in, right? You can only play this. That's why I think Jason Statham. I love Jason Statham, but he gets shoehorned in these damn roles, these action, revenge movies, every single time because of his look. You can't really change the way someone looks, their face, but it's they're doing something with these actors. The wrestlers turned actors, like a John Cena, like more comedy, and this one is, it's comedy as well. But like a Momoa, Momoa's not a wrestler, right? He never was a wrestler.
He never was, but
he looks like he could have been one for sure.
Yeah, he definitely could have been one.
Yeah. So, or even like a Batista, for example, he's been in comedies, but he's also been in some serious roles too. So I think they're trying to utilize these big men. I will just say that, and I feel like it's so hard to do as compared to like a Leonardo or Keanu or something like that, right? Where you have to act on ability, skill alone. So
casting, right? I think we're talking about casting, and it really matters. You really need to. I mean, every part of the filmmaking process is important. That's why there's so many names at the end of a goddamn, even a short film that goes to Sundance. You're sitting there for at least a minute watching like 60, 70 names. It's like there's a lot of work that goes into these things, and the casting is one of the first parts of the process. And it's a very big part. I mean, the thing that these wrestlers, I think, bring to their acting is when it's the right role. Like I think John Cena is in the right role in Peacemaker. I think he's learning now how to pick roles that work for him as opposed to roles that don't. Obviously, his acting career has been a bit up and down, as we know. I'm talking to you, the Marine. That was supposed to be his big break back in the day, right? And that movie got I remember that movie getting completely shit on. And you would think that was a good role for him because it was like an action film and he's this wrestler. But I don't think
when he was wrestling, I think, because at the beginning it said it was a WWE Films production. Remember WWE Films?
That came and went. Yeah, they tried. I respect Vince McMahon tries a little bit of everything, but
he's a hustler. Yeah,
it's not just the physicality that wrestlers can do. It has to be the right physicality. So we're talking about that action scene in the first episode, and I gotta say, like, I think it felt very like, okay, this is that hand-to-hand style that we've seen Cena do in the ring. Obviously, he has props in the mix now. They're fighting with that machete, but he's throwing her like he would do. I forget the name of his move, but he's doing that classic John Cena move, and he's like, it feels like a WWE match to an extent. Like it felt like when I was a kid watching Cena and Rey Mysterio go at it. It's kind of what it reminds me of.
The same size comparison too. Yeah, Mysterio would be the size of that girl. Yeah,
exactly, and so I was just like, okay, cool. This is they're using him in the right way, and I think that's huge. That's what, because instantly I was nervous about in the Suicide Squad. I was like, oh shit, I'm not really like the biggest fan of Cena in Fast and Furious, and like I just want.
Oh, I hated him in the last Fast and the Furious. I really did. I did not like his. There was something about his demeanor that was just, it was wretched. I did not like the performance that came out of that.
Yeah, and I don't think he was written well either, but this is not the
Yeah.
case in this show. I think he's written really
Yeah.
well. I think that like the humor works for him. Like
Hmm.
Cena, I still don't think he's the best actor, but I think he can be directed. Like WWE, man, they're constantly being told what to do, how to cut the promo. I know there is some improvisation when they actually get in the middle of the ring, but they're like given beats to hit and points to hit. But there's a lot of direction that goes there. They have match choreography for months leading up to the big events. So if you can direct him, he can perform. And I think
Yeah.
that's what the show is showing us. Like Cena can actually do it. He just needs like a team behind him that understands him. And that's all
Yeah.
part of the process.
Absolutely. Well, so what did you think about the other characters, the surrounding characters that we're introduced to? The typical tech guy, the assassin girl, whoever Waller's daughter, like whatever she's doing at the point. I still feel like we don't know what she's really going to even do other than be a driver.
Right. I mean, apparently she's choked in every moment. That speech she gave was hilarious, by the way, when she like introduced herself. She's like, "My mouth is just talking. I don't know why I'm giving a speech."
That was
But
actually really good because I felt like sometimes with these characters, like they're supposed to be, dumb funny, which I call dumb funny, where it's like unironic humor. It's almost like a Napoleon Dynamite awkward situation where we can all kind of relate, but sometimes these scenes go on so long that it just pulls me out. I mean, Judd Apatow has a lot of these scenes where it's just like really stretched out. Sometimes a lot of Will Ferrell movies and whatnot, but or the Adam McKay is what I'm talking about. But like with her character, I didn't know really what I was gonna think of her. But I once again, like you just said, when she opened her mouth, the dialogue that went along with it, I was actually really like chuckling along the way, and it was just really funny. And then even her interaction with Peacemaker when she first met Eagly and he bit her, and then they kind of had this like dialogue back and forth. Or even like when Peacemaker says, "Hey,
yeah,
sweet, hey, sweet cheeks" to the girl in the diner.
so good. So and that's part. So you're speaking about the cast. I think that they all play off each other so well because they kind of help balance Peacemaker as being this. I think the word people would use would be like deplorable person who
Mhm.
clearly isn't with the times, is very close minded, but also I love how he has like this childlike innocence to him where like you get to see his father and it doesn't excuse the kind of person that he's become, but you can like kind of understand that like did he really have a choice, because if he didn't do exactly what his dad wanted him to do, wanted him to be, we saw the mental abuse that he was still taking as an adult because he's still under his father's spell. And
Yeah.
so like even his father, who had such a small role in the show so far, helps to accent what makes this character so charming and lovable to watch. And then the team around him, right? I think it's the perfect group of misfits. Like, yeah, they were there with Amanda Waller in like the big moments in the movie,
Hmm.
but like they're I mean, is Argus as shiny and polished as we think it is? Because these guys kind of fuck up a lot. Like
Oh
he
yeah.
is this he's for example, the scene where he's supposed to be this big tech guy and he does the good job of sort of like getting the car out of Peacemaker's name, but then he puts it on his father, linking it so closely to Peacemaker.
Yeah.
You know.
It's funny because initially you think that's kind of a good gag because we hate the father as it is. I mean, we know he's a piece of shit racist, right?
Mhm.
But then on the other side, Mearns, he says, "You idiot! Like they're gonna link this back. Like you could put two and two together. So you should have stretched it out basically to someone that wouldn't link us back to Peacemaker's character." And that just
Shout
goes
out
back to the
Dom
clever
in the
writing.
chat as well.
Oh, what's up, Dom?
Yeah, no, I think that everyone's firing on all cylinders. Like I think they all really come together in such an amazing way that makes this thing so infectious. I mean, I think that the theme song proves how amazing everyone is. I mean, I'm not skipping that. I'll watch that 100 times.
I thought that was going to be a one-off for the first episode, and then we kept seeing it, and it really grew on me. And I didn't skip it. I just kept watching it.
Dude, it's so funny. It's hilarious. I mean, they're dancing in the
Yeah,
weirdest way. It's like pseudo 80s. Like I love the use of hair metal in this. It kind of,
yeah.
it's like the Cobra. I'm glad we brought up Cobra Kai at one point in this because I think that a lot of love for Dom in the chat right now. Um I think that we kind of have in a sense with Peacemaker Johnny Lawrence. He has good intentions, but he's sort of trapped in a different time and he's trying to understand. But like when they explained to him, you brought up the sweet cheek scene, right? They're like,
Yeah.
that's like her butt. And he's like, no, that's the cheeks. Like he doesn't understand how the definition has changed. And
Right, right. He has an
So it's
old
like,
school. He almost has an old school. That goes back to the suit. He almost has this like old school branding on his brain. Like he had been like a Captain America frozen in time or something like that. Some kind of timepiece, some kind of time relic. But yeah, it just seems like he's used to these old school values in a modern world that just don't work.
yeah, and it's a really cool like sort of clash of ideals. Like it's like we have like the David, not the David, sorry, the Danny and Johnny dynamic here, but
Yeah.
instead it's Peacemaker versus everyone around him, who are kind of just like, hey man, like that's not very, it's not cool
Mhm.
anymore. Like, but
Yeah.
he doesn't get it. And then there are just like amazing moments where he kind of proves like, well, my way's not always wrong. And it's crazy to see because you like are trained to hate this character, but then like they give you these moments where they also show you like, all right, I kind of understand where he's coming from a little bit, like the abuse he takes from his father
Yeah.
and the way that like he like clearly had to break into his own house because he got locked out because obviously like he couldn't afford to pay it. Like they like really humanize him in a way that like I wrote in my review. I wrote like I'm never been more morally conflicted as an audience member because someone that I want to dislike, they keep time and time again doing things that make me feel emotions of like sadness for him, and
Yeah.
it's wild. You know,
Mhm.
it's pretty
Yeah.
wild.
He always wants to have these little moments too of acknowledgement or just some little win for. I mean, it's perfect when he goes to go visit his dad and go grab Eagly. Right? He's like, Dad, he's hugging me, and his dad had already taken off. Right? It's like just this little moment he wants to have where his dad acknowledges something, or like even the discussion where they're sharing a beer or whatever, and he's talking about how this guy was terrified of rats, and he's talking about Idris Elba, and he's like, that wasn't the guy that shot you, was it? And he's like, you know what I mean? Like just these awkward moments where he's just constantly letting his dad down, which is definitely relatable. I mean, not with me personally, but just most people is acknowledgments from your parents or peers that you want to be either at a certain point in your life, you want to be either here or you just want to be recognized as, hey, I'm actually, I'm doing something with my life, right? And he's definitely someone that wants to be, living up to his dad's standards. And racist cape or not, I mean, I don't know if they call capes. That was the one thing I wanted to ask you too. Are capes just reserved for superheroes or vigilantes or all of the above? Is it villains,
Yeah, I don't.
superheroes?
That's a good question because first of all, I guess I'd have to ask you like, what do you consider Peacemaker? Anti-hero, hero, villain?
I think he's for sure. I don't think he's a vigilante. I think he's a anti-hero. I think he
So
would
do I.
fall under that, under that
Like I
title,
think
but
his friend who keeps coming and going, I forget the
vigilante.
name of him. He's a vigilante for sure.
Yeah, yeah. No, it is vigil. That's his name, vigilante.
Oh, really? Oh, that's so
Yeah, I
stupid.
believe that's what his name on the poster I saw was vigilante, and it's played by Freddie Stroma, who I love too. I can't wait to talk about him. But yeah, that was another one where it looked like an old school suit, so I didn't know really how I was gonna feel towards him. But
Okay.
I actually really did like him along the way. But I think in his case, I think he may be a little more sinister than Peacemaker. Because I think when push comes to shove, he's able to kill, as we see, later on in the episodes, that John Cena kind of hesitates a little bit,
Yeah, so let's
when he
move
comes to
into
pull the
those
trigger.
back few episodes because I feel like they
Sure.
go hand in hand, and you're obviously specifically talking about the moment where they're camping outside of the U.S. senator's house, who they believe is associated with this Project Butterfly, which is
Right.
the mission that Amanda Waller has assigned this batch of Argus misfits or really traitors to take care of, right? Taking out Project Butterfly. And there was that really cool shot where we got to see the global reach of Project Butterfly. And for those of you guys who
Oh yeah.
don't know, yeah, on the Argus little screen there. Um, this is basically like a parasite that infects your brain, takes over the human body. It's we've seen it before, and that's what I think is part of the fun.
Like a
It's like
body snatchers type of deal.
it's nothing we haven't seen before, but it's
Hmm.
the way that they're kind of making fun of the generic storyline of there's a host parasite and it will eventually affect the entire planet, and that's how
Hmm.
we'll take over the world. Like they haven't said that, but you just know that that's what it is. And
Yeah.
that's what makes it fun because the way Peacemaker goes about solving this is different than how serious other films have taken this plot line and this approach. So they're camped outside of the senator's house, who's one of the higher up figures that is a part of Project Butterfly, and they have a sniper, and he has a clear shot. Take out everyone that they find to be associated with Project Butterfly. We learn that it's not just the senator, it's his wife and the 2 young kids. And instantly Peacemaker's conflicted. And this goes back to that moment that I was talking about, one of the moments where you're like, damn, like they make it hard for me to hate this guy. Cause like he's like, but they're just kids. Like I don't want to kill them. Like they're innocent, they're children. And it's like, this man is all about kill for peace. So if they're evil, I will kill them because I want peace above the rest. And they're clearly infected. Their bodies are no longer human, but yet he can't do it because they're children. So Vigilante comes along. He pops them one by one. He's having a blast. He's cracking jokes to himself while he's doing it.
Yeah.
Kind of taking his time, which...
That's what I was wondering. I was like, why is he taking so much time? Like, wouldn't the family run? Like, anybody would run after the first pop.
Yeah. But I think that's part of like the meta nature of the writing of this show.
To show how brutal a kill is. I mean, because we are talking about killing, men, women, and children and stuff. So usually that's very taboo. I mean, at least it's not shown on screen. Alien or not, it's not really shown on screen typically.
No, not typically, and it's so gruesome. I mean, they just leave severed heads all over the set in this episode. It's kind of wild, especially as we later progress, where we get the one-on-one moment between Vigilante and or Peacemaker and the senator as Vigilante's being tortured, and Peacemaker's just like, "Bring it on," because he's. But then, like the way that he shotguns the head off, like I can see that perfectly in my brain, like just how dismembered it was, bludgeoned it was before the butterfly eventually pops out. And so
it burrowed its way in there, deep in there. It has to be
deep in there. And I really liked where we're going with this show. Now that we've seen the conclusion of the first act, we know that like this is going to get bigger than it is. Like it's not just going to be this tiny sort of like we're stuck in Hell's Kitchen Daredevil type of story. Like this is a global reach. Like these butterflies are everywhere. So I mean, I'm curious to see, will we bring other members of the Suicide Squad in? I don't think so necessarily. I think it's going to be kind of up to Peacemaker to solve and save the day. But I think like the show is very effective in this sort of clash of, okay, it's still a comedy. The first episode was more comedic in a funny way. This is now becoming more of a situational comedy. But I think a part of the fun that I haven't really seen many people talk about is like the meta nature, like almost the social commentary that James Gunn is making about like, hey, like, aren't you guys tired of seeing the same generic storyline? So I'm going to make fun of it right now. I'm going to make fun of the host parasite story that has taken over the world. Like, how many pandemic movies did we watch last year in quarantine? Like it's almost like that a little bit too. And it's like the show is so layered, and like you could like really talk more intelligently about it than I ever thought we'd be saying after watching him in the Suicide Squad movie where we first met him only a few months ago.
Right. And plus, I mean, leaving off with that final shot of showing the computer screen of just how vast this butterfly project just spread, right? I mean, essentially when you show something like that on screen, like almost like a pandemic of butterflies out there across the globe, you're essentially leaving this series open to infinity. Like this can just keep going on forever, because how can one person or at least one team tackle that it looked like tens of thousands of infected people, if not even more? You know what I mean? This could essentially keep going on forever, which is cool. I like when they leave it open-ended like that, because if it doesn't lead on with Peacemaker, like you said, who knows? Maybe it leads the way for Vigilante to have his own thing if he becomes popular enough, or another character that we saw in the Suicide Squad. Maybe they'll do some damn prequel now, before that whole first crop in the Suicide Squad got killed. And because there was a lot of characters in the Suicide Squad that got killed off in that first batch that I really wanted to see more of.
Dude, give me the Weasel film.
I think a lot of people really like that character too. And I mean, we saw he survived, so too, right?
Yeah, I don't think I need a full movie, but I would love like a
Series?
30-minute short, like one-off like episode. Like just give me that. That'd be cool, Such a weird, disgusting looking character.
I know. I don't know too much about the Weasel. Oh God, I was going to say, who knows? With the height of the
No,
popularity of Pete Davidson, he might become his own thing too. He might have his own thing, right? Whatever his character was, I forgot who he played, but
sure. We'll see
he's
if Kanye buries him though first.
man, that's a whole huge debacle right now. But it's blown both of them up like in the
Yeah, I don't even
forefront of
know what's going on there.
TMZ
I just saw
news.
a headline.
Lord. Well, I mean, you align yourself with the Kardashians, bro. You're like royalty right now to the media. But
True.
yeah, who knows what's going to lead? But I want to really quick before if we go forward or wrap up or just kind
Mhm.
of go back to that sniper rifle scene, because Peacemaker has been known to say, I'll kill, I'm willing to kill, for peace, which is total, it doesn't make sense. But men, women, and children, he definitely named that. But when push comes to shove, he doesn't do that. So that implies to me that he's just all talk, and he's never been in that situation. Or over the 4 years he was in jail, he just hasn't done that in a while, and he was quite rusty. So it's either one or the other, but it has like there's a machismo factor. It's like you try to talk a big game. So to me, that adds a little element of who he is. I mean, yeah, he does have a moral compass. Yeah, he is Peacemaker, but he froze when and obviously Vigilante didn't, because Vigilante's been, I believe, has been doing this longer, and that's why I'm gravitating towards, well, maybe not longer, but he's maybe done more. I'll just say that, like as far as been in crazier situations, than Peacemaker has been, and at least recently. And that's why I'm kind of liking this vigilante character. And when they took off his mask, man, and he was doing all the face contortions, I was like, this is a Jim Carrey in the making, bro. you know?
True. That's a great comparison. I didn't even think of that because you know what? It was funny. It wasn't like corny and bad. It was
Yeah.
actually funny. I was like, wow,
And it
that's actually
adds
like
to the
really.
story, and it adds
Mhm.
really to the story. I mean, if someone that's a super fan, a fanatic, almost like it kind of threw this Peacemaker series is kind of throwing me in the world of Kick Ass, the movie Kick Ass, where
Yes, great movie.
you can, yeah, where anyone off the street that believes they can do justice or serve the street justice throws on their own homemade suit or cape or whatever it is, and just goes out there and does it. I think that's kind of probably what we'll see from Vigilante's character. I doubt he has any actual training unless he's watched YouTube tutorials or something like that, or that Detroit, what is it, that
Bro,
Detroit
if they
cop
do a
guy.
line where they're like, "You can learn anything on YouTube." If they do that, that's fucking genius because that's
That'd
so
be great.
self-aware.
Yeah.
That would be great. And he feels like that. He feels
Yeah.
like that. But you know what? You're totally right. Like I think the vigilante character is not only funny, not only does he work because he's so stupid, but yet so effective. So you're like, wow, this man's like an idiot, but he's like honestly a cold-blooded killer. He
Right.
helps the audience find find like a reason to justify those feelings of kind of like find myself rooting for Peacemaker, even though I know he's terrible. Like
Mhm.
it kind of morally makes you feel a little bit better about investing in this character because he is a horrible person, obviously.
Yeah.
And he almost kind of makes Peacemaker feel more misunderstood than terrible. Because again, like that moment where he is hesitant to kill the children, like that was like as funny as it was. Like he's like everyone's like just do it, just take the shot, and he's like, we've seen that moment before, like, but for this character it felt different than other times we've seen that moment because I think they've done such a good job in 3 short episodes, like painting him out and
Mhm.
showing us like who he is. So now we get to see him grow through the story, which is awesome. But he actually feels established. Whereas one of my biggest issues with the Marvel series is I feel like we don't necessarily learn who these characters are in their solo stint, like a Wanda or a Hawkeye or a Loki, until like the third acts come around. Like they take such a long time, like establishing everything, and then they just throw us right into the fray. And it's really those last 3 episodes that you needed to watch. You could skip the first few. Like not much development happens, but here we've done such a good job, in my opinion, of developing, establishing who this character is, where his morals are, and will he grow, and can he grow, and how will he grow, and allowing us to have like these types of conversations this early on into the season. Whereas other shows, I don't know if you could have done that. We tried doing that actually, and I remember oftentimes when we were doing our review series for WandaVision, for Falcon and the Winter Soldier, we're like we're finding it hard to talk about things here, And this is
Yeah.
crazy because we've had multiple movies with these characters at this point. We've only had one movie with Peacemaker, and he wasn't the lead. He was a part of the ensemble, sure. But I just think it's done in such a way where I think the conversations we're able to have around it show that, like, yes, the show is more than meets the eye. It's more than like a silly, slapstick, gory, raunchy comedy. Like, there's depth here, like the scene that
Yeah.
we've spent about 15 minutes now talking about. That's just one scene, and we're able to have this deep of a conversation. I can't remember one scene from any of the Marvel series that I've been able to get this much out about. And I know that I could continue to find more to talk about, not just looking for it. Genuinely, more would come if we continued
Right.
to stay on that one scene. So, I mean, I guess unless you had any more specific comments, I think this would be a great segue to move into, like, because this is clearly the end of the first act.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of feel like that's where I'm going, like reflecting on the first act as a whole. What are your thoughts about, like, a lot of what I just said?
Yeah. Well, I think piggybacking off what you just said is that, you had said earlier too, is that the extensive time that we get to spend with some of these characters from a series as opposed to a movie. I think that's what but then again, I haven't watched all the Marvel shows. I've only watched WandaVision and more recently Hawkeye. I haven't seen the ones in between. So I think that they're able to, spend more time with the development of whatnot. And I think with this Peacemaker character, yeah, he's conflicted with his dad. He obviously has moral issues. But I think we're going to see where that stems from possibly in the future. I mean, now he has, Mern's to answer to. And Mern's even said it. He goes, they gave us a killer that doesn't kill. And I think that's what they initially thought, just based on his physicality and obviously what he says. I mean, he's saying that he's willing to kill anybody to finish the objective or whatever. And when push comes to shove, once again, he doesn't pull the trigger. So I think he has a lot of answering to do. But I like where it's going. I think in these next, I want to say that there's 7 episodes total, 7 episodes, I believe it is. I could be wrong.
Is it okay?
I believe so. I could be wrong. I gotta check them out. But we forgot to talk about Judo Master, who was in episode 3.
Yeah, bring him up. He's great.
Yeah. So Judo Master, I mean, we spend a little bit of time with, no pun intended on the little, but I believe he's a teenager, is what they said, eating hot Cheetos constantly, which is such a random gag to add to this. You notice he was eating it in the front, when he's supposed to be guarding him. He's eating it in the lair, in the secret little dungeon area. But when it shows his action scenes, he's kicking ass. And yeah, I think the height advantage is definitely, it works in his favor as he's just beating the shit out of everyone. I'm one to believe for sure. If we didn't see some kind of confirmed kill, and if it's just like a knockout back and forth, I don't think this guy's dead. I mean, yeah, we saw, is it, Economos, I believe the tech guy, Economos, I believe his name is. Yeah, he knocked him out with a tire iron or whatever. He bashed his head pretty much, but we didn't see any close up of like blood or brain or something like that. He could still be alive. I mean, we don't know the capabilities of some of these capes. I mean, some of them could be a lot stronger than others. Obviously, with the first butterfly that was fought with John Cena's character Peacemaker. So I'm to assume that he's just going to recover. We're going to see him with like a bandage over his head in the next couple of episodes, like back with another butterfly or something. I don't know.
He was a great character. I also agree with you. I don't think he's dead because he's like such a big part of the intro theme song. And I feel like
easy. Yeah.
this is the kind of show that, like, the intro theme song kind of tells you a lot about the importance of the characters rolling in that last scene.
Absolutely.
He's sitting up there on John Cena's shoulder with his arm in the air, like, for like the cheery moment of the theme song. He's not going anywhere. And I also love the one scene where they're like flicking hot Cheetos in Peacemaker's eye, and Peacemaker is like, what are in these things?
Kicking them. Yeah.
Yeah, it's hilarious, dude.
Just
Also,
gets off the wall, yeah.
that moment with Economos was so well acted. He's like a serial killer in the making. Like, he got his first taste of beating someone brutally down, and I think he wants more. Like, he was just sitting there afterwards, like, laughing like a psychopath, dude. I was like, this is dark, bro.
I think it's because he's surrounded by mostly killers, so I think this, supposed confirmed kill that he thinks he just did, will add to some kind of camaraderie that where he could talk about it. Like, yeah, I killed Judo Master back there, and it's just something to talk about over a beer, right? So I think he feels like part of the team now.
Okay,
more part of the team because he's just being picked at as like dyeing his beard, and he's like a virgin, and you know what I'm saying? Like they're just constantly poking fun at him. So
he's got the low blood sugar, so he had to
oh
eat
yeah,
something in that moment. Like they're just like doing everything they can to make this guy seem like, wow, he's not going to be that effective. But
right.
he went full on psycho there, which
Oh yeah,
it almost like, now that we're learning more about the rest of the cast, it's almost like, are they all the psychopaths and is Peacemaker the most normal one out of all of them? He honestly might be the most down to earth normal one out of all of them
yeah.
at this point in time.
I don't understand this question. Is Peacemaker available to watch on formats other than Binge? What is that? Is that a
Uh
I know JT No BS. I believe it's from Australia, so maybe
oh,
that's a service called Binge.
okay. It's
I mean, the
HBO
way
Max over here, man.
it's on HBO Max, yeah. And the first 3 episodes are now available. It's going to be coming out every Thursday. Yeah.
Eric doesn't think he thought that Economos killed Judo Master. Okay, so you thought he was
There's no-
happy just to knock him out? I think when you hit a crowbar to the back of someone's head, like even just
It was
once,
like
I
5
think you
times.
think you killed them. And he was throwing his back into that shit. Like he was going hard, dude. And like then he came back for more after he was like clearly limp after a few.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
It was that constant gag of like, you hit them once and then you're just like, yeah. And then like they're still crawling. And then you hit them again. It's like they're still crawling. And then it's like, then you're going after the hacking, right?
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
it was a lot. It was intense. Like another one of those moments where I was like, all right, there's a lot of realism here that I don't think I needed.
Yeah.
And I hope they're doing psyche evals on this set, making sure that everyone who's creating it is like good, because this is pretty dark.
Yeah.
There's a lot going on here that was deep.
Real quick, we kind of glossed over of Peacemaker's father being the White Dragon, where he gets locked up,
Bring
and
it
now
up.
we
Yeah.
know, now we know that he's and obviously, I mean, unless I'm incorrect, has this been the first time that we've seen someone of like an Aryan background or some kind of racist background become some kind of vigilante or part of that world? Because I have never seen an Aryan cape. I'll just say that.
Yeah, there was clearly a salute in there that was
Oh yeah.
tied to a terrible part of history.
Oh yeah,
Um,
and I mean, all these guys were really, Aryan tatted up, and what's it called, and it confirms.
mhm.
And I thought that was an interesting underline as well too, is because the dad's a confirmed racist. I mean, he lets it be known throughout the show. He calls one of the agents, it was like an Asian,
Mhm.
little slur or whatever,
Not good word.
and yeah, he didn't have any good words for them, and you know but then Peacemaker does get attached by guilty by association of being that as well. And he's constantly saying, I'm not racist, I'm not racist. And it's like, that's almost like a cancel culture that you would see in our real life world, right? It's like, well, this person's associated with this person, so they must be racist, right? It's like a guilty, or guilty until proven innocent type of deal. And I think Peacemaker has just like a lot of things going on. He wants his dad's approval, knowing that his father's a bad person.
But
So we
like,
get into
that's so understandable though, because like that's your parent, you know.
yeah.
And
Yeah, it's one of those things. It's like my dad could have, murdered thousands of children, but at the end of the day, he's still my dad, and I'm still going to have this little ounce of, hope or love for him, and whatnot. And it's a weird bond. It's a weird thing that I think a lot of us can relate to, where our parents or even family members have done terrible things or have done you wrong, but at the end of the day, it's still your family. They always say that you can't pick your family. You can pick your friends, but you can't pick your family at the end of the day. I'm not saying accept that. I'm just saying that there's going to be that little, sliver of some kind of connection that you have that you don't have with a random stranger. And I think they're doing a really good job in this series portraying that. But I just thought that was bizarre, man. This white dragon character. So it's like, okay, in these future episodes, are we going to actually see some attire that he's going to be donning?
that'd be
And
nuts.
how would is it going to look similar to a Peacemaker, like more old school looking, or is
Mm.
it going to be more modern? I don't know.
I wouldn't be surprised if Peacemaker has a look similar to his father's back when he was in his prime, because he wants his father's affection so much. He wants to make his father happy. It would make sense. And I think, oh, sorry,
That
what were
might
you
be the
saying?
final fight. I was going to say that might be the final battle between them two. Is them kind of confronting. The father's going to know that he was set up by the son's by Peacemaker's crew, and it's going to come to light.
Yeah.
by this time, White Dragon's going to have an army behind him. So it's like, holy shit.
So Peacemaker doesn't think long term, and I think that's one of his flaws. White Dragon, while he is this horrible rednecky sort of fringe right wing crazy guy, right? That's who they're trying to make him.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean he's not intelligent. Like, he can see the bigger picture. So I totally think he's going to be working his way towards retribution on whoever put him back in jail, and that's going to lead him, of course, to Peacemaker and the Argus crew. And I think that's actually not a bad guess here. I think he probably is the central villain, and I think this is going to be the crux of Peacemaker. Like, is he willing to stand up for himself and the right thing to do, stand up for justice, which he says he is, even if it means going against his father, whose approval he seeks more than anything. And I think the White Dragon character, while not only being an amazing villain, being one of the most compelling villains I've ever seen, one of the most realistic villains I've ever seen in a superhero story, considering the history that he's bringing into it. It makes you really like that. This is why I feel okay saying I have empathy for Peacemaker, because that could not have been an easy household to grow up in. And that's why I believe him when he says he's not racist, but he's just torn between two worlds, you know? And his character is trapped, really. He's trapped between what he wants to be and what he wants, and those are two different things, because what he wants is his father's love and approval, but what he wants to be is nothing that his father would ever approve
Absolutely.
of.
So I looked up the episodes. There are 7 episodes in this one. So I mean, we're gonna have to have our central villain. It has to be White Dragon. There's no way they can go after another butterfly this quick. I think it took 3 episodes to build to that. So unless there's like one more maybe shimmied in there, I think the central focus is going to be this White Dragon character, because I think they want to see how this series is going to do. And I'll be honest. I mean, I haven't seen any numbers, but I think this may be greenlit for another season.
The buzz seems to certainly be there. I mean, people are freaking out about this show, but here's the problem. I mean, this show was already in the works when the Suicide Squad movie was finished and shot. They were already working on this. That movie tanked epically because I think The Stain, the first one, leaves on it. I personally didn't hate the first Suicide Squad.
Suicide Squad didn't do well financially?
It did great financially, but over time, the legacy was tarnished, and we started to realize the problems and that it wasn't that good of a movie. So it was already going to be hard to get people to want to go back and see a second one. Like, you kind of burned your goodwill. You're
talking about the first movie.
I'm talking about the impact of the first one.
Okay.
And the only reason I think we're getting this show is because it was already in the works when the second one was being worked on and completed. So the fact that the Suicide Squad, the second one we'll call it, just for clarity's sake, failed in 2021, I think that had that movie failed, the show would have gotten canceled if it wasn't already done and being ready to put out. Like, that movie, I think it made like 30 million at the box office, and its budget was like 180 million, like something crazy like that, because of the HBO Max day and day of release, because of like where the pandemic was at that point in time. You got to remember that was in the Delta spike, so the timing wasn't that good. It really didn't do the numbers they wanted it to do. Critically, a huge success, a huge recovery. Like, just go and compare the Rotten Tomatoes scores.
Yeah.
If you care about those. I don't necessarily know, but it's like one of those.
It's weird with that really quick. It's weird because the movies that you find enjoyable, and then you kind of search back and you look to see, and they have a higher Rotten Tomato score. It's like, yeah, you agree with them in that moment, but it's like some of these ones, it's very conflicting sometimes, because sometimes they'll get it right with me. Like, I'll understand some of the reviews, and then sometimes they'll be completely different. So yeah, Rotten Tomatoes, I think it's just because there's so many voices speaking on Rotten Tomatoes, it just gets lost. It just becomes very convoluted.
What I'll say is, okay, so over time, it went on to pass 100 million. I remember that opening weekend, it making like 12 million, and that just being terrible for the Suicide Squad, the second one. I think it's one of those things where this show's lucky that it was done, shot, and edited around the same time the second one came out, because
that didn't make any money, really.
Had that not been the case, we would not have gotten this. Thank God we got this. And I think this is going to save the Suicide Squad franchise in the DCEU. I think this is going to avoid it from being written out in Flashpoint, because I think it's going to be a huge hit. It already kind of is on the YouTube sphere, the critical sphere. I just think audiences have to watch it now, and we'll see what those numbers come in. The Nielsen numbers should come in soon and talk about the viewership. HBO doesn't have like a top 10 like Netflix does. I'd assume it's at number 1. I think this is like the Suicide Squad's last chance, really. So I think it all depends on how this does, for not only to see if we get a second Suicide Squad, or a third Suicide Squad movie, but a second season as well. Like I think this show is carrying a lot of weight for all these characters. That's
Right.
just how I see it. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I can agree to a lot of that. And once again, it's one of those movies where you have so many characters to focus on. You just have so many characters to focus on. So the fact that they took a chance and created one immediately while they were filming the last movie, that's risky. I mean, they could have done that with the Idris Elba character. I doubt he would have agreed to be on for a whole series. That's just because of his star power compared to a John Cena. I think John Cena is like, let's just do it because I'm really trying to expand my repertoire or whatever. And I'm glad he did it because this is a character that I'm definitely love. And I think James Gunn is the perfect guy to he probably knows the focus groups and knows what's going to hit. And I think it was just put in the right hands, So I think there's,
I think James
no,
Gunn, I was going to say I think he's a huge part of why this thing has been given such legs, such goodwill, so many chances because of his impact with Guardians,
yeah,
because of his impact with characters and how he's always been able to really understand the worlds that he's working within. I think he's a very underrated filmmaker of our modern day. I think a
yeah.
lot of that's because of how much time he spends with superhero properties. He doesn't get the respect that he deserves from traditional Hollywood. But I think the studios get that. And I think that's kind of why that we've been given so much life in this universe, even though we had such a box office failure.
I was going to ask you, do you think it's wrong? I know people are putting up numbers of previous, DC films and whatnot, but do you think it's wrong to kind of judge a movie's success since we're in a pandemic? I mean, over the last couple of years, 2020, 2021, I know it's a hard feat and everyone's going to go back. Well, Spider-Man No Way Home did this. That's a whole different entity. I mean, we're talking about, a franchise over the last 2 decades being wrapped up, the Sam Raimi verse, the Amazing Spider-Man one, all wrapped into, this Tom Holland Spider-Verse. That's a different entity, I think, compared to like solo superhero movies coming out, or even like the team ups or whatever, group ones that we did get over the last couple of years, Eternals included, to judge that it should warrant a box office success because Spider-Man did all that. I don't know. I'm just starting to have like at the moment I was like, yeah, it flopped and stuff like that. But then now starting to realize that we're 2 years into this damn pandemic. A lot of movies are struggling.
I think the way that we value a movie's success monetarily is going to have to change. I
Yeah.
also think over time there's going to be less money put into marketing, so movies can clear more of a profit, make more overhead. I think budgets might even start to get decreased if we don't start getting back to normal. If we don't stop worrying about the next wave, and how that's going to push back movies and how that's going to like impact the profits. If we can't start forgetting about that stuff, then I think movies are kind of going to change a little bit.
They have to, yeah. I don't know
Um,
if you've been noticing. I'm sure you have, but like movies that have limited theater runs, within 2 weeks they're on Amazon for rental. One of the perfect example was the last Resident Evil movie. There was no way I was gonna go out in theaters and see that, but 2 weeks later it was on Amazon to rent. So I'm like, this is such a quick. If we thought physical media return was fast, within 3 months you already have a physical DVD, Blu-ray, or 4K of this. Now we're getting the Amazon rental in 2 weeks, 3 weeks. They're waiting for it to get a short, quick release, and it's like, seeing all of that tells me that the theater experience is going to get in lockdown and die once again, like we did at the beginning of the pandemic.
I mean, Eric's up in Canada. Apparently, they closed theaters again.
Yeah.
I've noticed with Disney Plus, Encanto on Disney Plus a month after, Eternals on Disney Plus about 2 months after. They're putting them up quicker.
That's where I saw it. Yeah, that's where I saw it on
Yeah,
Disney Plus.
they're putting them up quicker. I mean, because they want to still catch the buzz. And I wonder what's going to happen with movies that are made in the pandemic now, because I think they're going to adjust for that with the budgeting, with the marketing plan. They're going to build in a way to make more profit around that. So I think once we finally get through these movies that they need to clear the overhead from, that were shot pre the pandemic, like your Top Gun Mavericks, your Morbiuses that keep getting pushed back, I wonder how we're going to adjust. It sucks that we're going to adjust because I think that means some quality or some things we've grown to love about certain styles of movies are going to be left on the floor. because maybe they can't afford Tom Cruise hanging onto the side of a plane anymore. Because if
Right.
not enough people go out and see that, how are we going to do something that tops that? So we might have to adjust expectations, which would suck. But I think something's going to change. It's either going to be the virus goes away and we get back to normal, or Hollywood's going to have to adjust, because we already know their bookkeeping's creative. And with all the losses that they're taking, I don't think they're as creatively giving themselves bonuses as they would have liked, as they probably
I,
did in recent years. So they
I
want, they want to fix that.
I think it's going to be the latter, my friend. I think we're going to, well, not we, but the studios are going to have to adjust. I'll just say this, and this may be the hottest take, maybe not even a hot take, because I think this is realistic. I think the average moviegoer, I'm not talking about you or I, that watch a lot of, that appreciate a full movie experience. You know how they always promote, filmed in IMAX for IMAX theaters, right? I think the average moviegoer does not give a shit about that. They will watch that on their 40-inch screen TV at home. Yeah, some of us, have larger TV. Like I have a 75-inch, surround sound Dolby Digital in my living room. Do most people? Not really. Do they care? Not really. And if they do care, they're going to go out and they're going to invest in the equipment that becomes cheaper and cheaper every single year. Technology just becomes cheaper and cheaper. The way you can make that's concrete evident, go into your local Best Buy. You see TVs on the floor constantly, and they're getting larger and larger, and they're coming down in price hundreds of dollars or more, because models come out every single year. So that tells me more people are spending time at home, and they're spending money on their home setup, and they're like, why go out and spend $20 a ticket or $15 a ticket for an IMAX experience when I can get close to it, even though it's not close to it, at home?
I'm not going to lie to you. I don't blame them either.
Yeah.
Peace of mind, you can't put a price on it.
Yeah. And
you're safer in your home.
Yeah, depending on, exactly. One, you're safer. Depending on where you live, gas ain't freaking cheap. It's $5 a gallon out here. I don't know where, around the country how it is.
We're getting there where I live.
Yeah. Nothing's going down in price. People are still traveling. You would think gas is going up. People stay at home. No, people are traveling more than ever. I'm like, what is happening? Like, everything's going up and people are not adjusting to it. I know people aren't getting most people aren't getting raises. Most people aren't even going to work. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, it's a really weird time that we're living in. And I think the entertainment industry starting to feel that. But the good thing is they've had all these projects that they've already made. So they have a slew on the shelf that they can either put out to digital, or get a limited theater release if they want to take a chance on that. But we're going to see a lot of content coming out. And I don't know if you saw this recently in the last couple of days. It might have just been yesterday. I got a notification. Netflix is going up another $2 on their subscriptions, which tells me they're having more exclusive films every month or every week.
Was literally just having a conversation about that with Dom and some of his friends the other night. He came back into town.
And we're going to pay for it, because we know that Netflix is now a household. I mean, it's been a household name, but we know with all of the original content that they're coming out with, they are the big dog players. That's just what it is. And we're going to watch them at home. I'm sorry. Like, yeah, they may have limited runs in theaters, because I think Irishman was that a Netflix as well? Like, didn't that come out on Netflix? But it did have a limited run. Come on, most people are going to watch it at home. That's a freaking 3-hour movie or 3.5-hour movie, something like that. So
3:45, I think, with the credits.
God.
Yeah.
It just depends on the viewer, man. But I think that there's more average people than there are cinephiles. I will just say that
110%. And I also think you can't put a peace of mind on safety. And I think that's why shows like Peacemaker, which seem cheaper to make, which seem smaller scale, but still have that Hollywood feel, that's why I think they will sort of rise to the top and cut through. I think The Boys is a great example of that. The Boys has this intense energy, but it feels very grandiose. But it also, if you're like us, you can like see that like there's a lot going on in the writing, which makes it intricate and brilliant, but it's cheaper to make than, like a Disney Plus superhero show. And that's going to be, I think that's going to be the name of the game going forward. Well, David, this was phenomenal. Want to do like a final thoughts on the
I could talk with you forever here, man. I mean, I know we had initially talked about like, let's do a 45-minute. I was like, there's no way that's happening.
Yeah. Not I just
go off. Yeah, I go off on tangents, man.
Listen, we both got back to work. I remember when we first met, it was like you were locked down. I was locked down, even though we're in different states. We both got back to working. I started school up again, but like we got to get back in the habit of chilling at least like a
Yeah.
couple times every like quarter and just get on a stream. So
I actually never technically had a lockdown because I was an essential worker. I was still working through the pandemic. So
oh damn.
I still constantly get comments of put out more movie reactions. It's like I don't have time. Time is a virtue, man. So it's like, and I'm starting to get into shows too. I mean, you talked about, TV nerd. I'm starting to get more into shows and appreciate them. Like you said, I'm getting into Game of Thrones. I'm starting to do weekly recaps, and I'm watching the Righteous Gemstone season 2 right now. I'm
Nice.
watching
I've heard good things
Peacemaker.
about that.
Oh,
I
check
got
it out. I'm getting my girlfriend into it on HBO Max right now, the first season. It's really funny. It's really, really good stuff.
okay. I'll definitely check it out. I got to say, I'm loving your Game of Thrones series because you're hilarious.
Thank you.
I mean, the scene where it's oh my god, the mother of dragons. I'm forgetting her name right now. Amelia Clark's character.
Daenerys.
Yeah, Daenerys, and you're like that P has power or something. I was
Oh
dying. You're
yeah.
like, I was like, yo, no way he said that.
Well,
And
this
it's
is the thing with show reactions. It's tough because you want to find that little gap of not talking over them, right? You don't want to talk over. You don't want to miss anything because I'm not watching these technically with subtitles. The only subtitles that come on are when Darthrakis are talking. But I'm trying to find those points, and there's a lot of editing. Guys, if you're a reactor and you guys are watching shows or even movies reacting, the editing process, especially for YouTube, is way different than Twitch. From what I've learned, Twitch reactors, they can watch a full episode without even pausing or anything. As long as they're kind of have their webcam in the corner and they're kind of talking here and there, they can watch a full episode. Not YouTube. You have to edit and chop like every 10 seconds, find the meat and potatoes. I constantly have people saying, you didn't put this part, you didn't put that part, you talked over this part, you're never going to please people, but I'm having a
yeah.
fun time along the way. I want to watch Game of Thrones quicker than what I am, but I have these obligations to either, Netflix movies, Amazon Prime. Like I said, I'm trying to get these screeners early so I can review them for the channel. I wanted to get more back into my reviews because I like talking them. So I'm just trying to find the balance in 2022, but I think we're off to a good start, and I would love to shimmy in these live streams with you. I like I said, I'm not doing them personally on my channel currently. At least I haven't been for the last couple of weeks. So yeah, I would love to have an outlet to talk with you, man. That'd be awesome.
100%, man. We'll definitely be more in contact. This was a phenomenal stream. Guys, please go follow David at It's Flix Talk on Instagram. Follow him on Flix Talk on Facebook and Twitter. Of course, on YouTube at Flix Talk. Hit the like button, subscribe, and turn the bell on to get notified whenever he goes live, post content, as well as the same thing for us at Official Talking TV Podcast. You guys can find us on Twitter at the Talking TV Podcast and on Facebook at the Talking TV Podcast. This was a great chat. We appreciate it so much. It's always fun. And I love that we have this ability with technology to fuse both of our audiences. Like JT, familiar face I hadn't seen before, I thought brought a lot to the chat. Eric always showing up. Luke, of course, a good friend of both of ours. This is great, man. What a great way to start off our Sunday morning. And before we go, David, why don't we do like a quick star rating of the first 3 episodes, the first act of Peacemaker?
Oh, sure.
Thoughts,
Each episode or just an overall rating?
I think since we got the first act very clearly, let's like rate this first act.
Okay. So I'd give it a solid, I'd give it a solid 3.5 probably out of 5. I know maybe leaning more towards even like a 4, because even though our central focus is Peacemaker and even some of Vigilante, I think some of the side characters can step it up a little bit. I'm talking more about Harcourt. I keep forgetting her first name. Do you remember her first name? Harcourt. They just refer to them by the last names, but I thought she was great.
I'm sorry.
I thought she was great, but I thought she could have had a little more scenes. But I know this is obviously Peacemaker. That's the title, of the show. But I just can't wait to see in these next couple of episodes everybody step it up a little more. But I'm going to say probably leaning more towards a 4 out of 5.
Yeah, I think that's a fair score. I think that's where I'm at. I think you could easily go in with the
Amelia Harcourt, yeah.
Amelia Harcourt. Okay, that's cool. I think you could easily go in and be taken by the shock value of not knowing what to expect and having this show that, at least for me, really fit a lot of my comedic sensibilities, a lot of my action sensibilities, while bringing in some realism, which is something I've been craving from the superhero genre for a long time. We had it with the whole Marvel Netflix mini universe, but then we kind of lost it and went to more of like the bigger scale stuff, which I think lost some of the human nature. So the fact that we have that in this show was very strong for me, made me almost want to say a 5, but I think it's a little too early to give it a 5 yet, because I think while we have established a strong starting point, we'll see where we go. But I'm locked in. I look, 4 more episodes.
I'm gonna keep watching. Yeah,
it's not going to take that much time out of my week. I'm looking forward to them. Thursdays now give me something to do, and that's really cool. So yeah, 4 out of 5 for me. This was great, guys. Thank you so much. We appreciate it. Again, be sure to like, subscribe, and comment on all of our content. Keep up to date with what we're doing. This was absolutely awesome. We will see you guys very soon. David, any final thoughts for the people before we head out of here?
No, just thank you for giving me the opportunity to do this, cross streams. And a lot of regulars that I talked to before. So thank you guys so much. And once again, make sure you guys are subscribing to Talking TV. They have a lot of show content, a lot of movie content. Are you guys going to be doing more movie reactions? I really enjoyed actually those last year.
Yeah. So we're getting into the movie series because there's a lot that I haven't seen. So we have a
that Fast and the Furious, it was great. That's a lot of movies to tackle.
Yeah, thanks, man. Hey, I'm glad you like that. Yeah, we have a very enchanting one coming up sooner than later.
Okay.
Keep your eyes peeled for that.
Yeah.
Very mystical. It's gonna be. It's been a very magical experience so far watching them all. That's all I'll say. So with that being said, have a great rest of your day, everyone. If you're watching football, I hope your team wins, and the team you don't want them to win loses. And if you have to go to work, well, at least you started your day off with us. So cheers, guys.
There you go.